Rory's going to play in the Hinch.
Yeah, I think he will. He is leaving it up in the air in the moment. He has sort of thrown it out there that he wants to play the week before each major, which is the Scottish Open. Now, maybe he goes and he wins the Masters and the US Open and the US PGA. It's worth remembering that actually the entire schedule has changed this year. So the Open is the last of the majors rather than the US PGA being the last of the majors. It is. It's listen, there's a lot of conversations in one here. Yes, the entire golfing calendar is too condensed now. Now maybe they've looked at, say, American football, and you get your 4 months, and everybody's all over it, and that's what they've looked at golf, because now you've got the Masters in April, you've got the USPGA in May, the US Open in June, and then the Open in July. And then you've got the FedEx Cup at the end in August.
So that's pulled forward as well.
And you have at the start, then you have the Players' Championship in March.
So nothing September, October, really?
Well, European Tour is going to try and come to the fore there.
Also, now we need one of those dates.
So the BMW Championship at Wentworth is going to take place in September now. So ideally, and Paul McGinley touched on this last night, like Rory has sort of set out his stall for the year. Maybe his stall will change as the year develops, because when the FedEx Cup ends, unless you're just going to go on the wheelbarrow circuit, as they call it, over in the Far East and pocket a load of cash, that's your time to play in the European Tour.
Right.
There's some decent events. You can play at Wentworth, where he's played well before. You can play at the Dubai World Championship. You can play at 2 or 3 of those tournaments where there is good money, where there will be good world ranking points. But maybe right now he just doesn't want to make that long-term commitment. Who knows what's going on in Rory's head? Everything he said last week was true.
Yeah.
It's just whether or not it was necessary to say it. You know, you don't go around telling your mate that his girlfriend isn't good looking, even if you think it. You just trying to keep it to yourself.
Well, the thing was, he said it the day after he made the initial comments. He came out, I think, he came out on the Wednesday and said, I'm not going to play many European Tour events. It just makes sense for me living in Florida. I'm like, fair enough. And then the next day he's like, yeah, the European Tour is crap as well. Yeah, well,
he'd made clear from late last year that he was going to probably give up his European Tour membership, that he wasn't going to play. He was going to...
You can just let that happen. You just don't answer the phone calls. A bit of ghosting wouldn't have been the worst thing to hear.
It's probably not that simple in terms of he always starts his year in Europe. So he always goes over and plays in Abu Dhabi or Dubai and starts in the Middle East. This is the first time he's ever decided to go and start on the PGA Tour. He's definitely not going to be back in Europe till he's going to play Cran-sur-Sierre, which is the Swiss Open, maybe the European Masters they might call it now, because his sponsor sponsors it. And he's going to play either the Irish or the Scottish. He hasn't confirmed one way or another.
No chance he plays both?
No, I don't think so, because it's... And this may work, I think, in the Irish Open's favour. The way the calendar has changed, again, is just so crazy. You have the Irish Open, the Scottish Open, the Open, and then you have a World Golf Championship straight away the week after.
Right.
So most players are going to want to play... That's back in America.
Right.
So most players aren't going to want to play 4 in a row. But I think that may actually play into the Irish Open's favour, that they also won't want to play 3 in a row. That they may play Irish Open, week off, Open, World Golf Championship. And they can stay in Ireland, obviously, for the whole thing, because you're going from Lahinch up to Portrush.
Oh, yeah.
But...
Seems like an accident rather than a design that's going to lead to long-term success for the Irish Open.
Yeah, the Irish Open's always going to be under pressure. Absolutely. And I would also counter that if Rory plays, the main reason he'll play is because of Paul McGinley. I don't think he owes the European Tour anything. He owes them absolutely nothing. He doesn't really owe the Irish Open anything.
No, he saved it.
He saved it.
Yeah.
But you would always like to see the home players playing their home Open. But he wouldn't be the first.
No.
Justin Rose misses a lot of tournaments in Britain.
I know.
Francesco Molinari.
Britain's huge. They've got loads of people.
Molinari has stepped away from the Italian Open at certain times. It happens. It's just that Rory McIlroy is the biggest
Francesco
star.
at least sends the brother, though, right?
In world golf. We'll still get GMAC. It's fine. But I think on a personal basis, because it's McGinley, he should play.
What is the situation with the Ryder Cup next year? How many European Tour events does Rory McIlroy need to play, or should he play?
So this year it doesn't matter. He can write off this year as long as he takes back his membership for next year. So you'll play the 4 majors. They change it every term.
It used to count double, right?
Yeah, and the actual points, how they come together with the points tally, will be up to Harrington. McGinley touched on that last night. What Thomas Bjorn did was he stockpiled the points towards the end of the qualification period, so that you had better players in form ensuring that they were qualifying. Because
giving everybody a late chance to qualify.
Well, exactly. But what happened with Darren Clarke was that the way it worked out, a lot of players had qualified a year in advance.
Yeah.
So if you were to, say, win one of the huge tournaments this November, it could almost get you towards the finishing line for an event that's not taking place for another 11 months. So they want to avoid that.
Yeah.
Like, the commitment is minuscule. I think it's like 4 tournaments outside of the majors. Like, it's your Irish Open,
Scottish
Open, and maybe 2 more. Play the Dubai World Championship, play in Abu Dhabi. It's tiny.
Yeah.
4 or 5 events outside of the majors. It's not a huge commitment.
So it's a spiritual thing, giving it up. Why would you say it? Just like
Well, this is. I think that's.
I didn't make it.
It's so unnecessary.
That is the most interesting part of all this. Why he felt the need.
He's just honest. That's the issue.
He is.
He just tells the truth about stuff he thinks.
And quite often, I think
it out his head. It's like, I think that's the issue. What about the Olympics? I'm not sure. I don't know. Does it matter? I don't know. I feel a little bit this and I feel a little bit that. And I'm like, make your mind up. Like, I don't. Do I have to?
Yeah.
Isn't that it?
Well, exactly. And sometimes I think he probably has a little bit of regret a year later that he was so honest. But it's brilliant from our point of view because he always gives you a talking point. It's the wording. The second you say a stepping stone, that the European Tour is a stepping stone, you really are putting the boot in. Remember, Keith Belly's been over to Belfast to meet McIlroy. I would imagine the conversation goes, what do you want? What do you want? And then for that to be turned around into, the European Tour is a stepping stone. Like, he's right. For the top players, for the leading 20 Europeans, it is a stepping stone. They're looking to get onto the World Tour. Shane Lowry did the exact same thing. He was looking to get onto a World Tour where you play whatever you want in America and the pick of your European Tour events. Rory, it seems, has made a definite decision that he's laying down a bit of a marker here of, no, you could easily play the required number of events to keep your card, but he's just decided, I'm going to focus fully on America, which...
It might be for competitive reasons. Like, he desperately wants to add to his major haul. Like, and
I agree with all that. So, yeah, you can make that case, but the way the new season is set up, by the time we come to August, the major season is done. So then you have a full 6-7 months before the Masters starts in 2020, and his entire focus every time is rightly, if he feels that playing in America at this time of the year is the best possible preparation for winning at Augusta, he is dead right to play in America. And I would agree, the fields are generally far stronger in America at this time of the year. So he's better off basing himself there. But to just write off the rest of the year when it's unknown territory for everybody, how you feel come the end of the FedEx Cup in September.
Yeah.
Maybe you're flying. Like, Rory's had seasons recently where actually he comes into form July, August. Yeah. Are you suddenly going to go, well, actually,
I'm off.
I'm taking 3 months off. I'll play the odd event here, the odd invitational. That'll do me. I don't know.
What do you make of his form at the moment? I'm not sure you're watching much of Hawaii last weekend, but it seems that being in contention on the Sunday and kind of fading away is the new Rory McIlroy. Now, granted, Schauffele was...
We watched every
No, this used to be my favourite event of the year when I was a young man without children. I used to force myself into watching every shot in Kapalua and this week's Sony Open. It was like the basis for the season ahead. You'd learn. Yeah. Nobody else was up, so you kind of had a bit of a head start. But now reality has kicked in, and staying up till 4 a.m. to watch golf is not that advisable.
Yeah.
I watched the highlights of his final round. Was it now the last 6 times he's been in the final pairing on the PGA Tour? He's failed to win and never really put any pressure on. He said before the round that, listen, I haven't delivered in these situations. Now's the time to go and prove it.
He keeps saying that. He keeps talking himself into it.
He does keep talking himself into it.
The pressure's all on Patrick Reed.
Everyone's going to try and read into what happens over the next 3 months for Augusta, and it's probably pointless, because you look at the start of last season, he went over to the Middle East. I think he finished 2nd and 3rd in his first 2 events. Everyone felt it was all flowing perfectly, and it was all flowing perfectly until the second hole of the final round at Augusta. He has that eagle putt and comes up short, his shoulders slump, and literally the season disintegrates from there. His entire season could well depend on what happens on the 4 days at Augusta, and we don't know what's going to happen until he gets there. I think everything else is just fine-tuning, hoping that week is the week where his putter is hot.
Yeah, I think if you're him at this point, you've got to try and do something slightly different. You've got to interrupt the pattern from what's happened since you were the best golfer in the world to now. It's like, oh, there's McIlroy. You used to be really good, didn't you?
In fairness to Rory, he does that all the time.
interrupt the pattern.
He constantly interrupts the pattern. He constantly finds things he thinks that works and brings them into the next season, and then he realises that actually that was slightly off, and I'll change this and I'll change my schedule. And sometimes he goes through this spell, as he feels this year, that my best major performances have been when I've played the week before. I think it was only a year, 18 months ago, he was saying that maybe he felt the opposite, that he liked coming into majors absolutely fresh and having a couple of weeks off beforehand. So again, does any of that really matter when you put yourself in a position to win the Masters on the final day, on the second hole, in the final group against Patrick Reed, and you don't hold the putts?
We haven't really, I think, talked enough about Harrington in all this, because it was expected, because it was, I was saying earlier, it was like not a damn squib, but just like we knew this was coming from ages ago, and so there was no element of surprise to it. He'd put his hat in the ring, and at that point, you know, he's one of the big beasts of European golf, and if he says he wants the Ryder Cup captaincy, he's going to get the Ryder Cup captaincy. Fair balls to him for taking it in America, first off. And, you know, I think that's he needs to get a bit credit for that.
Yeah, I think he was always going to get it in America, because he's probably, of that generation, by far and away the biggest profile, which is what the European Tour needs. They need someone who can go out front and centre and sell this. Like Darren Clarke had that, probably, well, he was a major champion, but also because he won a World Golf Championship. He beat Tiger Woods in a World Golf Championship 15 years ago, but it was still relevant. People still remember this because Tiger was at his absolute peak. So there's not many European Tour players who have the profile of Harrington. Like Lee Westwood doesn't have the profile of Harrington in America. Maybe Sergio Garcia might be next time, because again, he has that. Poulter would have that. But I think, yeah, it was always going to be America, and Harrington said that from a long way out. He felt that if he was going to captain Europe, it would be in America. But it is a far tougher challenge. There's no question. You can remember the big European wins. Like in Medina, it was a miracle for a reason, because it was so darn difficult to do it.
Yeah, well, they were so far behind as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah, well, that was, yes.